Hey everyone, welcome to the blind reaction of My Hero Academia Season 3, Episode 2. So, last time we got a recap kind of filler episode. Just had our young heroes hanging out at the pool, having fun, being cute, all that jazz. And in the meantime, we got some recaps on what happened in Season 1 and 2, and it was a little disappointing, to be honest, that they did such a generic recap episode as the first episode of the season. I don't feel it was necessary. Um, I just don't feel it was necessary. They could have just as easily and with less time recapped the events that happened in like one piece of dialogue, but instead they had to make this entire episode around it. I just feel like it's it's too generic for My Hero Academia. Come on, you guys, you're better than this. You're so much better than this. Studio Bones, what's wrong with that? There's something wrong with this. If you're resorting to such a generic recap episode, did you have to fill some kind of quota for episodes and just needed one extra episode in the end? That's the only thing I can think of. But even so, placing at the very beginning of the season, the very first episode, it feels lazy. I mean, Season 2 had an episode 0, right? That was sort of a recap. Why couldn't they have done that with this? Had an episode 0 that wasn't actually part of the season, so that when episode 1 came around, you could just get right into it. I don't know. It just feels really lazy and just kind of sad. It was really disappointing. It was still like a decent episode in terms of its actual quality. It wasn't as bad as a lot of these generic recaps can be, but it was still, it still wasn't great. It really wasn't. Especially on having rewatched it now a couple times. I just really wish they hadn't resorted to that. But we're finally at episode 2, and hopefully things are going to actually get started now. I'm hoping to get back into things, not necessarily the action right away, more of the story, the characters, really delving into things, just really getting back into the scope of the story and focusing on that. No more of this weird, pointless filler, no more of these silly little semi-fan servicey beach type episodes. You know, like, it's kind of a running gag in the anime community. Every anime has to have a beach episode because fan service. Even the anime that typically have fan service have to have a beach episode. But now that we've gotten that out of the way, at least, let's move on. Let's get past that crap. And just get into the story, the meat of things. Otherwise, I don't know what's actually coming in this episode. I don't know what to expect, so we're just going to get right into it. So when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. So that being said, thank you so much for tuning in today, and I'll see you at the reaction. Okay, and we are back, and we will begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. Okay, so this episode, this is more of what I wanted. While there was still a little bit of fan service-y stuff in the baths, it was actually very brief and wasn't really focused on. There was basically just this one shot of the girls in the bath, naked, of course. But it didn't actually really show anything, except I think it went by so quick. I think it showed Mina's butt and maybe some side boob. That's about it. Because they have to have fan service in there because that sells. It's not a huge deal. At least they made it quick and painless. Well, mostly. I mean, there's still Mineta. You know, I had seen like this image macro kind of thing. Floating around social media. Well, actually, I think it was actually straight up fan art. Yeah, it was actually straight up fan art. It was like it showed like the board of the UA school, like and how they're choosing to accept people in. And it's like Shinso, he has mind control powers. Oh, let's just put him in general studies. And then it's like Mineta, he has sticky balls that he pulls from his head. He's a hero. And it's like, jeez, seriously, Mineta, like, how is he qualified to join the hero class? The only thing I can think of is if he was brought in on recommendation. I know a couple of the students were. I don't think it was mentioned like if he was or not though, because his quirk, while it does have some uses for sure, it's not completely it's not completely worthless or anything compared to the others, and especially compared to Shinso's. It's incredibly less technically sound. Like, seriously. Shinso's brainwashing quirk is amazing. That would be an amazing quirk for a hero to have. It would be so useful. And yet, he goes into general studies all because he couldn't pass the entrance exam? Because he couldn't do physical work. And yes, to a degree, heroes should be able to do physical work. Um, Shinso is not that kind of guy. He's more of a thinker. He's more of the smart kind of character. But he's just as much of a hero as anyone else. He's just as skillful, just in a different way. And I believe it was actually a Racerhead, whose actual name is escaping me at the moment, who said during the tournament arc, during the match between Izuku and Shinso, that the entrance exam itself is actually completely illogical because of this reason. But getting back to the point I'm trying to make with all of this, Shinso, guys like him who are put in general studies and stuff, who have these amazing quirks, it's honestly stupid. And I'm not blaming the writer of My Hero Academia for this. I actually think there's a good commentary to be said with this kind of thing. Um, so I'm not blaming the writer. I'm actually more blaming like the in world universe. I'm blaming the people at UA. Um, and here's the thing. I want Mineta to become a good character. I want Mineta to become more than just a disgusting pervert who uses his quirk to climb walls so he can peep at girls in the bath. I want him to be able to use his quirk in amazing ways to be able to prove he's worth being here. But so far, I mean, outside of like maybe two isolated incidents at most, he hasn't. He's practically the most useless character in this show. I mean, on top of already being the most despisable. Like, seriously, like Sue said in this episode, right? Like, Mineta's just the worst. He legitimately is. I hate him more than any villain in the show. I'm telling you right now, I despise his character. And this time I actually am kind of blaming the writer for this. His kind of character was put in for comic relief. You know he was. His kind of character doesn't add anything to the story. It doesn't add anything worthwhile. Other than showing that, yes, these kinds of people do exist. And they do. I've met people like this. I've had friends who became people like this, I guess you could say. They weren't originally like that when I became friends with them, but they ended up growing into that kind of mindset. And it's just, I've always despised that. Because it's sexist, it's disgusting, it's completely horrible to do that kind of thing. To think that way. He sees girls as nothing more than sexual objects. As just basically items for his lust. He doesn't acknowledge them. I don't think once in this series so far, in either of the two seasons, or what we've got so far of season 3, which, again, only 2 episodes, but still, I don't think once he has acknowledged any of the female characters as more than just sexual objects for his lust, for his desires. And I know I'm going to talk more about the rest of this episode, but I kind of just need to rant here. So I do apologize. Skip a little bit ahead if you need to, if you don't want to just hear me. I'm going to try to cut it down a bit, but I do need to just get this out because I've talked about this before, but every time it happens, it gets more and more on my nerves to the point where it's just pissing me off to this point. He's not funny. This kind of character only exists for comic relief in media. Whether it's anime, video games, movies, books, whatever. This kind of character only exists for the sake of bringing in comic relief. But it doesn't work. Because it's not funny to be a misogynistic, sexist asshole. It's not funny to treat women like sexual objects. It's not funny even to see him get his comeuppance time and time again when he does this. Yes, he deserves to get knocked off the wall. Yes, he deserves to get smacked and beat around for what he does. But it's not funny. It doesn't add anything to the story. It's not comical. It's not dramatic. It's not relevant. It hurts the overall quality of My Hero Academia. And it's honest, and it's legitimately one of the only negatives that is ongoing in this show. This is one of my favorite anime of all time. It's just straight up, it is. But I think if Mineta wasn't there, it would be my number one. Mineta is dragging it down to that high of a degree. He pisses me the fuck off. And I'm sorry, I try not to get this angry. But it's like the rest of this episode was so good. And again, I'm going to get to that in just a minute here. But again, I need to kind of rant on this because if I don't, honestly, I'll just keep it bottled in. And then you know what happens if you try to keep your emotions bottled in. Ugh. The point is, I fucking hate people like him in real life. People who turn women into sexual objects. Now, if a woman wants to like get into sex work or something like that, if it's their choice, that's fine. But if there's just a person who sees women as nothing but an object for sex, an object to be stared at, an object to be lusted after, that's different than a woman choosing to go into sex work. That's different. And this is so normalized in our society. We have all of these music videos from rappers and other musicians who show all of these half-naked women and just completely sexualizing them. We have all of these shows and movies and whatnot who do nothing but sexualize them. Kids grow up to the point where it's like we're trying to say it's normal for teenage boys to lust after women. We try to claim that it's normal for teenage fucking boys, 14, 15 years old, to see women as objects of lust. That is not fucking normal. You know what's fucking normal? Boys respecting girls. Or at least it should be. It should be normal. It should be just the average of our society for boys and men and just anyone to respect women and just each other in general. The fact that this kind of thing still exists in anime or in real life, in anything, is disgusting. It's keeping our society from growing, from advancing, and from becoming better. We may make all of these scientific movements. We may make all of these great just progressions into the future. But we will never truly become better as people until we start to weed out shit like this. Until we start to weed out the fucking perverts out there who do nothing but see women as objects. And all of these other horrible things. Who see all of these corporate people who see their employees as nothing but stepping stones. It's the same kind of deal. It's disgusting and dehumanizing. And again, if a man, a woman, an NB, whatever else, if you want to, like, if you want to go into sex work, whether it be working in pornography, being on cam, or whatever else, fine. If you want to work at a strip club, fine. That is your choice. You are choosing to do it. That is okay. But when people, again, view women and others as nothing but sexual objects, they don't see them for who they are. It pisses me the fuck off. And it's the same reason why Endeavor pisses me off so much, because he sees Todoroki as nothing more than an object for his own desires. Obviously in a different way, but still. Okay. Now we're going to move on because I think I've gotten it all out. I think I've said all I need to say here. And I want to talk about the positives of this episode, because overall this episode was great. Like I said when we first came back, this is what I want from My Hero Academia. Except for the Mineta part. So we have some new characters. We have 2 new heroes who showed up who are pretty fun. They're pretty interesting. They're cute. And they have at least one of them. We didn't see the other's power, but the one we did see the quirk for was pretty freaking interesting. Like, I like that. I like what she can do and the ways she can use that. It shows a lot of diversity to her quirk and makes her come off as more than just, you know, like, oh, I can move dirt around. No, she actually can use it in some really fascinating ways. And that's kind of something I've wanted to see for a long time with a lot of these characters. Them using their quirks in different ways than would be normally expected. Like, we've seen a bit of that with Todoroki. He can do, in the tournament arc in Season 2, he was using the ice to slide on to block people from, like, escaping his attacks. All kinds of just really clever stuff like that. But a lot of these characters have really only used their quirks for, like, one basic kind of thing, or maybe a couple little clever moments, but not enough, in my opinion. So, yeah, I just feel like we should see more of that. So we begin our training, and it seems like we're going, and as Aizawa, I remember his name now, as Aizawa had pointed out, while they have trained and progressed and grown in a lot of ways, they also need to work on some things. Specifically, the strengths of their quirks haven't really improved all that greatly. So that's going to be, I guess, the focus of their training while they're at this summer camp. Not a whole lot actually happened in this episode. It was mostly focused around, like, just the first, like, test, I guess you could say. Them getting through the forest and whatnot. And that's all well and good and was great, but we're really going to get into the meat of it starting next episode. Once the real testing begins. We did find out about this Coda character, though. This new child character who was kind of introduced. But one thing it hasn't told us yet is that whether or not he has a quirk. Because we found out about the situation with his parents and why he hates heroes. But we still don't know who he is. Like, outside of hating heroes. We don't know anything else about him. And I think he's going to be a big focus during this arc. And I'm good with that. And then finally in the after credits we got to see a little bit more of the villains. Not a lot, but we're seeing things start to move. We're seeing the League of Villains start to expand and grow and gain all of these new members. And 2 of them have been specifically focused on since Season 2. And that has been Himiko Toga and Dabi. They were first shown, I believe, during the Stain arc, because I believe it was Stain's words right before the ribs punctured his lungs and he kind of passed out. I believe it was his words that inspired them, and that was the first time we saw both Himiko Toga and Dabi. Just we didn't really know them at that point, but we saw them. And then I believe they were shown at the end of season 2 as well. So they're definitely coming into play this season. I have no idea who they are or what their quirks are or anything about them, but I love their designs. Like Dabi kind of looks like this like Frankenstein's monster zombie guy. He kind of like has these like purplish skin pigments on his jaw and like parts of his body, and it kind of makes him look like they were stitched onto him, and it's creepy as hell, and I love it. And then Hibiko Toga is like this cute little schoolgirl archetype, but at the same time, she seems really freaking creepy, and I also love that. I've always loved that, I've just always loved that archetype. The characters who appear to be really cute and likable and just adorable, but end up being extremely terrifying in reality. I don't know why, I just always loved that type of character. It's just always clicked with me. Um, so I'm really glad we're getting to see that in My Hero. But otherwise, yeah, I really did enjoy this episode. Despite my long ass rant at the beginning of these afterthoughts, I really did enjoy this episode. That was an isolated thing. I had to get that off my chest. I really do apologize if I went a little too harsh there. And if you don't see things the way I do, that's completely fine. If you're less violently angry at Mineta, that's fine. I just can't stand his type of character at all, in any way. And again, as I said, I really do want him to become someone that I can like. I do want to see him progress and grow as a character. I don't believe it's going to happen. At least not to enough of a degree that'll make it all worth it. But I still have that hope, you know? Because characters I actually hate as characters, I do want to see become better later on. One great example of that, if you've ever seen the anime, if you've ever seen the anime, Great Teacher Onizuka, it's about this perverted, delinquent motorcycle gang member who becomes a teacher at a high school just to basically oogle the teenage girls. Completely terrible. But throughout the series, he actually becomes a better person, and to such a high degree that he does these amazing things for these students. And he becomes like one of those teachers that you can't help but respect and love because of how much he grows as a character. And he starts off as this completely detestable, horrible, honestly, kind of evil guy. But he becomes something better because that's kind of the point. You're supposed to hate him at the beginning. You're supposed to despise everything he does. Because that allows for the growth to mean something. And honestly, I hope that's what they're doing with Mineta. I hope that the creator of My Hero Academia, when he was writing Mineta, is purposefully making it in that kind of way, in a Onizuka kind of way, to where he's supposed to be hated. You're supposed to despise him as a character. But then, he progressively gets better and better. He gets better with his quirk. He starts to grow up. And by the end of the series, you'll end up loving him. I really hope that's the case. I don't truly believe it's going to happen, but I hope it ends up happening. So yeah, either way, tell me in the comments below what you thought of this second episode of Season 3 of My Hero Academia. What did you think of the new characters? What did you think of the beginning of the summer camp training? And where do you think this is going to go? And if you know, if you've read the manga or whatnot and you know where this is headed, please do not tell me. As always, I wish to remain spoiler-free on everything going forward. And considering the manga's, to my knowledge, quite a bit past this at this point, I definitely want to be as spoiler-free as possible. So, thank you all so much for tuning in, and Again, I do apologize about that long rant. I needed to get that out. I needed to get that out before it just festered inside me for too long. So, thank you for understanding. And for now, I'm Connie Royal, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.
And don't just live for tomorrow, or just live in yesterday. Just be glad for all you have that's in today.